I'd like to briefly turn the meeting over to one of our outstanding students who will receive the President's Award tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the dais Oscar Lucero from the Parkland High School.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty, and good evening, everyone. My name is Oscar Lucero. I'm a sophomore at Parkland High School, and as this month's recipient of the President's Award, it is my honor and my pleasure to call this meeting to order. Oh. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the Ysleta Independent School District's meeting of the Board of Trustees. Whether you're here to address the board or to celebrate the accomplishments of those being honored here this evening, we are happy that you have taken the time to join us and invite you to take the opportunity to share your questions and comments with the board during the public comment portion of our meeting. Rules for participating in the public comment portion are available at the sign-up table. We would like to remind everyone this is a board meeting, often attended by students, and we ask that we all conduct ourselves in a manner that best represents the values and traditions of the Ysleta Independent School District. Please turn off or silence all cell phones, tablets, and other electronic devices, and thank you for your attendance. December 14th board meeting is called to order at 6:03 p.m. We have a quorum with Mr. Rosales, Mr. Ramirez, Mrs. Woodruff, Mr. Pearson, Mrs. McLean, Ms. Duenas, and myself, Shane Haggerty. Trustee Rosales, will you please lead us in the pledge and a moment of silence?
To honor our nation at each of our board meetings by presenting the colors, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and then posting the colors. The colors tonight are being presented by the Junior ROTC Color Guard from Eastwood High School. The Color Guard commander is Cadet Lauren Hawkins. Other Color Guard members are Cadet Ellen Guillen de la Rosa, Cadet Jeffrey Baca, Cadet Jorge Meneses. Color Guard is trained by Sergeant Major Cadet Cheyenne Gonzalez. The pledge leader is Bronte Gwyn de la Rosa, an Eastwood High School Junior ROTC student. Will you please lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now please join me in the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
During the September 12th Agenda Review Workshop, consent item number 1 was pulled by Trustee McLean. Consent number 4 was pulled by Vice President Woodruff for separate motions. Are there any other consent items you would like to discuss or any items you wish to pull? Yes, ma'am.
Hold on.
Mr. Haggerty, I'd like to return consent item number 1 back to the consent agenda.
Does anyone else have any other discussion on the consent items? If not, using electronic voting, may I please have a motion on the revised order of the agenda? We have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on the revised order of the agenda?
President Haggerty, members of the board, the administration supports the order of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, sir. Motion passes 7-0. Secretary Duenas, do we have any requests for citizens' input?
Shane. Empress.
It is out of order. Dr. De La Torre, do you have recognitions this evening? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir, we have 2 recognitions. I'll turn it over to Chris. He'll tell us a little more.
Good evening, President Haggerty, members of the board, Superintendent De La Torre. We have 2 recognitions for you this evening. At this time, we ask you to please come to the front of the dais for the presentations, and we ask audience members to remain seated until the recognitions are complete. Thank you. Yeah. Our first recognition is in honor of Parkland High School sophomore Oscar Lucero, who was chosen among hundreds to play on the Mexican 15 and under national basketball team in the International Basketball Federation's Central Basket U15 World Cup in Puerto Rico last month. Oscar is a true definition of the ideal student athlete. He has a 93.9 grade point average, is in the top 10% of his class, and is a member of the Parkland High School's T-STEM Academy. Every teacher speaks highly of Oscar and commends him on his behavior and leadership skills. On the basketball court, however, Oscar has been truly exceptional. He started on varsity as a freshman, maintains a positive attitude, and motivates his teammates. His coach says he is the last player to leave the gym and is one of the most coachable players on the team. In all things, Oscar seeks to avoid negative distractions and works every day to be the best person and athlete he can be. He represented Ysleta YISD and Mexico proudly on the Mexican national basketball team, and we are honored to call him one of our own. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for our President's Award recipient, Oscar Lucero. Accompanying Oscar is his coach, Mr. Jorge Quintero, and Principal Dr. Daryl Henson. Let's hear it one more time for Oscar Lucero. Our final recognition tonight is in honor of Celebrate Freedom Week. The proclamation reads, whereas the Texas Education Code requires all public schools to educate students about the sacrifices made for freedom in the founding of this country and the values on which this country was founded every year during the week in which September 17th falls. And whereas this week shall be called Celebrate Freedom Week, during which school districts shall require study of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. And whereas evidence demonstrates voter engagement in Texas is at an all-time low, more so in marginalized communities and worse in youth demographic, which impacts not only candidates who are elected, but also which policies are pursued and implemented. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Ysleta Independent School District does hereby proclaim that the week of September 11th, 2016 through September 17th, 2016 be observed as Celebrate Freedom Week. Proclamation adopted this, the 14th day of September 2016. Here to accept the proclamation is Mr. Jonathan Cereces, who is in charge of Constituent Services for State Board of Education Member-Elect for District 1, Ms. Georgina Cecilia Perez. This concludes our recognitions this evening. Thank you.
Secretary Duenas, do we have requests for citizens' input?
Yes. We have one, and it's Denny Portillo, and subject is Gym, Mesa Vista Elementary.
Hello. I wanted to know if we have kids that want to play basketball, but we have nowhere to practice, and wondering if we could borrow the gym at Mesa Vista Elementary. So these kids, I have the 4th, 5th, and 6th. We played over the summer. We've been practicing at the park, but it's a little too hot for them. So wondering if we could do it at the gym. And of course, the players are called the Leopards. And I've coached there for many years, but you know, of course, we got to ask for permission for the gym, so I'm wondering if we could borrow it.
Doctor, I know we have policy in place. Maybe you can have,
Yes, the process would require that you come to the central office.
Okay.
I believe Mr. O'Neill would have to have him fill out a use of facility form,
Okay.
and there are a couple of requirements, but they'll certainly entertain your request.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
That's Mr. O'Neill, the tall athletic fella over there. TMI.
Mr. Haggerty, that's all we have.
thank you. Dr. De La Torre, do you have reports this evening? Hopefully to include why we're all up here wearing jeans and tennis shoes.
Why did you out me, Shane?
It was Ms. Rosales.
This morning, I participated, and it was awesome, in a special Crayons to College ceremony at Ramona Elementary School, which has been adopted by the El Paso Community College to help increase college readiness and awareness among our youngest students. Ramona is the first of our campuses and the third school in the city to be adopted by the El Paso Community College. We look forward to advancing this new facet of our established relationship with EPCC, as well as the eventual benefits this will undoubtedly provide to our students. Congratulations to Ramona Elementary School, our first school to partner with the El Paso Community College in Crayons to College. Over the past couple of weeks, we have been holding ribbon-cutting ceremonies at home football games to celebrate the new artificial turf at our stadiums and mark the completion of one of our first bond projects. The new turf is attractive, cost-efficient, and our coaching staff has expressed appreciation for the fact that their teams are no longer victims to wet and muddy stadium fields of the past. We also continue to sell season tickets with reserved VIP seating at all of our high schools, thanks to our generous partnership with Viva Auto Group. We encourage everyone to come out and watch our athletes this season, and we thank our community for its support of our bond program, students, and schools. Lastly, on Monday, September 26th, we will hold a ribbon-cutting ceremony at 9 a.m. at Hacienda Heights Elementary School, Heights International School, in honor of 3 significant occasions taking place this year. First, Hacienda Heights has been redesignated as an international school featuring a quadrilingual curriculum in English, Spanish, Japanese, and French. In addition, the campus is also celebrating its 65th anniversary as well as the 20th anniversary of its dual language program. The ribbon-cutting ceremony will serve as a kickoff for several events taking place at the school that week, including a parade and alumni breakfast. Congratulations to Hacienda Heights International School on accomplishing these significant milestones. President Haggerty, that concludes my report.
Thank you. We have one more report from Secretary Duenas on the El Paso Central Appraisal District update and district concern.
Yes. I'd like to show you the central appraisal statement that we have from July 7, 2014. And that's the amount that we were delinquent. And that would be the 15,000, I can't see very well from here. 2009, was that correct? Oh, okay. And then further down is the payments we give, which would be the 200 and, I can't see very well from there here. So,
$300,000?
there it is. Okay. 299 and 449 and 80 cents. And that's quarterly. This was the fourth quarter that we were late in. And this is the one that apparently Ms. McLean and Mr. Pearson don't remember on it. But this is what we were not told and were not presented. So just to bring back to you all that it does exist, and this was a statement that we had not been delinquent in 100 years, but now so that all of you can see it and be present, it is open records from the central appraisal. So this is my report on this statement. My second presentation is on, I had on September the 2nd, I had some principals ask me to visit my schools. And to my surprise, I was stopped because I did not have my badge or I was not able to go into the schools. But to my surprise, when I...
That one's not on the...
Yes, it is.
Oh, district concern? That's
Yes,
the
it is.
District. Okay.
So, so the thing is that apparently, to my surprise, one of the things that happened was that I hoped that this stops, and apparently it has been going on for quite a while. And for the administration, if you would please, you were running a risk on this situation. I went on that day and I was not able to either speak to a principal or an assistant principal. And they were all here at central office. If something goes on wrong or one of the parents goes and wants to speak to either one of them, we will be liable. So please do not do that again. It is very important that we keep one or the other. That's why they were hired. And so please do not let this happen ever again.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, you had a comment?
Yeah, my reference is back to the CAD, and I don't pay the bills for the district, so don't put that one on me. And the only reason that it even came up is apparently YISD did not pay theirs, and they were late. And it came up that they were going to be charged a late fee, which came before the board of directors, which Ms. Duenas is a member of for the CAD. And that's when it was asked of the director, had anybody ever gotten out of paying the fee, and they know everyone had paid, and they announced all the people who had done it before. So it went up for a vote if EPISD would be able to waive their penalty. Ms. Duenas, how did you vote on that?
On that, yes, I voted no.
Actually, you voted yes to waive the fee. So what I don't get is you keep bringing this up to us about us owing money, and yet you voted to waive the fee for EPISD.
I voted because if this happens again, at least we would get a chance and not to have to pay for penalties that we're not supposed to be paying, and it should be paying on time. So this is the reason why, because you all keep on bringing it up. And so this is the statement that I have, and that's why I'm showing it, because you seem to not remember and not seem to even seen this paper before. Now, this report has been given every payment, which is quarterly.
Let's go ahead and move this discussion maybe to a workshop or something
Yes.
in the future, but I appreciate the concerns from both sides. Thank you. Go ahead and move on to the approval of the minutes. Yes, sir.
Do we owe 290?
That's the payments, the quarterly payments? Not right now, no. We're paid. Right. But for this year, yes. Right, Ms. Leeper? Right.
Penalty?
Right, because they were sitting
No, I'm
on
just
that.
saying, did we or did we not? That's my question.
I don't know, I wasn't sitting on that cab at that time.
But we paid our penalty.
I guess so, I
When
don't
you
know.
sit there, you should know, do we pay a penalty or not? That's my question.
We did pay the penalty.
But El Paso Independent School did it because you voted against them paying a penalty.
Right,
Okay, that's all I
because
needed
if
to find
this
out. Thank you.
happens again, we would be excused for that.
Thank you, that's all I needed.
Thank you. Hopefully that it doesn't
Because
happen
I'm sure
anymore.
it happens again, it's going to be happening if we don't take care of it.
Let's go ahead and use our electronic voting. If I can get a motion for the approval of the minutes of the workshop, June 27th, 2016, August 22nd, 2016, and special meeting, August 24th, 2016.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the minutes for those meetings.
Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on the approval of the minutes?
President Haggerty, members of the board, the administration would recommend approval of the minutes as presented.
Excellent, because we did 7-0. 10 item, the superintendent has had the opportunity to make recommendation to the board on the items on this agenda. The order of the agenda has been approved, but are there any other consent items you wish to discuss? If not, may I have an electronic motion on the remaining consent agenda items to include consent agenda item number 1 as recommended by the administration?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the remaining consent items, including item number 1.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second. Recommendation from administration, and we have all votes cast. And passes 7-0. Consent agenda item number 4. Consider and take possible action to accept a donation to Parkland Middle School in the amount of $15,000 to assist at-risk students. I know there's a lot of things that were donated by an anonymous donor. I think, Mrs. Woodruff, you certainly share the sentiment that I do, that I'm very grateful to our anonymous donor. I know you have a couple words you'd like to say.
Really, I just wanted to say thank you. I think it's one of the most generous things to do something anonymously. And so I just want to say thank you to whoever that person was, and or company or whatever, and that it's such a great project, just to say thank you.
If there is no other discussion, I move to accept the donation to Parkland Middle School in the amount of $15,000 to assist at-risk students. Motion and a second, and it failed.
No.
Oh,
Give
not
us
everybody
time to
voted?
vote.
Yeah, we'll try it again. See if we can get it to work. Let's just do a verbal. I moved, and Mr. Pearson, you seconded. Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on accepting $15,000?
President Haggerty, members of the board, the administration would recommend acceptance of the $15,000 anonymous donation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Action item number 1, consider and take possible action to approve 2015 bond audit plan. Is there discussion? There is no discussion. May I please have an electronic vote, an electronic motion on action item number 1?
Mr. President, I move to approve the, I'm sorry, I'm totally lost here. I move to approve the 2015 bond audit plan.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on item number 1?
President Haggerty, members of the board, the administration would recommend approval of the 2015 bond audit plan.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item number 2, consider and take possible action to approve YISD contract 2017-0175 with ABM Building Services LLC for turnkey energy efficiency improvements in Phase 1 sites for $11,396,500 and at district's option at Phase 2 and Phase 3 sites for up to $50 million, contingent upon receipt of independent verification of cost savings for all phases and legal counsel approval of final contract. Is there discussion? Yes, ma'am.
So at this time, we don't have a finalized contract?
No, ma'am, it is still pending final negotiations and legal review.
So we're being asked to approve a contract that's not finalized, that is very technical, hard for me to understand. I won't speak for the other trustees. Given, our fiduciary responsibility, our responsibility to look out for the taxpayer and doing what's best for the district, I find it hard. To be in the situation with this on the agenda.
We don't have a finalized contract because we haven't agreed to it, just like in action item number 4, where it says contingent upon legal counsel review.
Ms. McLean, if I may, I have a handout for you this evening that may help to explain some of the complexities within this. It's certainly short, and Ms. Mathewson has it. She can pass it out. I can walk you through it, and then maybe address any questions that remain afterwards. Would that help?
Possibly.
So good evening, Mr. President Haggerty, members of the board, and Dr. De La Torre. I believe Ms. Mathewson is passing that around, and it is on the screen behind me. I don't want to read to you the paragraphs in advance, but let me summarize them quickly. So again, pending legal review and final negotiations, YISD would issue a purchase order in the amount of $11,396 or $396,500. I'm sorry, 11 million. Thank you, $11,396,500. I do know how to read numbers. And so all of those improvements would be made in this fiscal year, and we would pay all of that up front. As the agenda item states, this is a turnkey project, meaning that all of the cost for planning, design, installation, permitting are included within the contract cost, which does include the vendor's fee. You asked the other evening, how are you getting paid? And we spent about 2.5 hours with them yesterday. I can tell you that it was as I suspected, but they did confirm. It's comprised of several components, but the biggest part of it is their volume discounts on large equipment purchases. So in phase 1, we're talking about purchasing 252 HVAC or refrigerated air units. They can buy those at a significant discount because they do it all over the nation. Additionally, They employ their own engineers, their own designers, their own architects, their own inspectors. And so they have all of those people already on staff, which allows them to procure those or to administer those services without having to procure outside entities to help with them. So if we issued the purchase order, the district would cut the purchase order, and then we would immediately go to sell debt. And we would sell that debt within the next 3 to 4 months, and then over the life of the 15-year project, we would pay the debt back. The principal and interest payments right now are estimated to be about $865,000 annually. It might be a little on the high side, but that's about what it would cost. ABM estimates the district will generate enough savings each year to cover those payments as well as the measurement and verification cost. So in addition to the implementation of all of these improvements, they will measure and verify each year that we are gaining the savings that they guaranteed in their contract. Additionally, you may remember from the other evening that the state code requires that they guarantee a certain component of the savings, and those are the energy savings. We will hopefully reach an agreement on the operational savings, which comprise about 60 or 40% of the guarantee right now, or the annual cost. That makes sense so far? Yes? Okay. So we will continue negotiating with them to arrive at a guarantee that fully protects the district's investment and one which we believe will outlast us in our 15 years. So the cost for the M&V services, that measurement and verification, if we employed them over the entire 15-year period, that would cost us about $250,000. So the total estimated cost for everything, principal and interest payments and measurement and verification, is about $13,200 over the life of 15 years. The projected cumulative savings over that same period is $14,640,000. And so in this first graph, what we're trying to depict is the blue bar tells you what we will spend this year. So I will spend it, and then we will sell debt and reimburse the general fund for what we spend. Over the next 15 years, the red bar represents cumulatively what we save. So you can see in year one, the red bar is very short. We are not going to recognize a huge savings this year, but it grows so that by the 15th year, the savings surpass what we spend. The yellow line across the middle, that's the annual savings. So every year we save about $500,000 in energy and $300,000 in operational savings. All together there? Okay, the bottom graph represents what we will spend annually. And so you can see that each year the blue expense represents our principal and interest and the measurement and verification services. In 2017, compared to what they will save us in red, it's almost even. In 2018, the red begins to slightly surpass what we spend, and it continues to grow through the end of the 15 years. And that's all I have for you this evening, but I'm happy to answer questions, and what I can't answer, the gentlemen from ABM are here, as well as legal counsel and...
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. You clicked yourself off.
On this payment, can we pay at least half? And as we see it going per year to see if it is working or not, can we then probably pay for equipment and then probably for the reimbursements and stuff like so, pay later just to see if it works or not?
So
or is a contract for 15 years?
The debt service is for 15 years. The energy savings are expected to last over the 15 years and in the 15 years cover the debt. So our payment is going to be $11,396,000 this year. And the way it's currently written, no, we cannot divide it up. The most significant costs are the HVAC units, the equipment, and so there's no way to partially pay for that. They're going to implement it this year. We'll have to pay for it.
So in this case, all the equipment will be new?
Yes,
or
ma'am.
only replace what you think looks good or bad?
Okay, so the equipment...
How do we know? Can we get receipts on that?
Oh, yes, ma'am. We will absolutely have receipts. So
for every school, that what gets done, itemized statements and everything?
yes, ma'am.
Because
So-
there's 20 schools that are being done per year, right? Is it per year?
No.
Or,
20 schools, one time in Phase 1, are receiving all of the benefits of this particular contract. This is not all of the campuses across the district. This is Phase 1 for 20 schools that are already under construction or under design for improvements related to the 2015 bond program.
or just for the bond? So it's not for all the schools?
Phase 1 is not, but we have Phase 2 and Phase 3 coming, which will address the remainder of the campuses. So for Phase 1, 20 campuses, 11.4 million.
And then, so phase 2 would be 20-some million, right?
At least, yes.
And
We're
why more?
estimating
Would
right now about
Is that
22
going to be
million.
also included windows? Because with the air conditioner system and everything, if we put new air conditioner system and we have old windows that everything comes out and comes in, the dirt and everything comes in, I mean, what's the point in having something like that if we're not going to have something that's going to keep the air inside or the heating inside?
So I am not competent to discuss the window improvements, but I can tell you that they have filtration, meaning the building envelope protection around the windows to keep that
The
from
seal?
occurring.
Okay.
And I'm sure they'll be happy to give you a lengthy list of all of those specifics. But yes, that's something that's addressed. And to that point, they can't achieve the savings that they're guaranteeing unless they make those improvements. If it's inefficient, they can't guarantee the savings, or they won't make their savings.
That's your 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Pearson, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. A couple questions. Okay, you said, what happens if, for whatever reason, our contract with them, I mean, we don't like what's going on and all that kind of stuff, but we're kind of tied in. The savings would keep on coming, I guess, right? Because of the equipment already being in?
Yes, so in terms of the measurement and verification services, if we wanted to terminate that contract, we have the right to do so. We just don't annually renew it. We are currently negotiating how that will continue and whether they would remain on and measure every year to ensure that. Most entities will stop that service after 2 to 3 years when they've proven that the savings are there, and most entities don't want to continue paying that contractual cost that they can get out of. That's only good for a year at a time.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. In terms of the overall $11.4 million contract, once we're in it, because obviously
Right.
they're installing equipment.
That 11.4, that's a lot of equipment. How long is that going to take for us to get up to 100% in those schools? Have you gotten from them any time frame or anything like that?
So it's my understanding they'll do what they call the low-hanging fruit first, which is lighting efficiencies, because those generate the most savings to the district and would immediately come back to us. So that will start immediately. In terms of the air conditioning improvements and the refrigerated air and those things, that will happen like at Christmas break, at spring break, times when students aren't in school, so it's not disruptive to what's going on the campuses. But they still anticipate completing it by the end of 2017?
Okay. One more question, maybe. $865,000 annually for interest. Where in the budget is that coming from?
Great question. So this is $865,000 for principal and interest, and it will come from operating. So the way a school district works is you can only levy debt if the voters approve it. Well, the voters have not approved it. This is a contract. So this will come out of operating. And the benefit to that is that's where our utility costs are. So what we would anticipate is by the end of year 2, we will be fully maximizing those savings, and that will come directly into the operating fund, offsetting this cost. And it'll be almost a dollar for dollar based on current estimates, savings in the operating fund. But next year, you'll see me come back and say, This debt service payment has to be included. In 2017, we pay about $7,000 in interest. In 2018, it'll be the full $800 and some odd thousand.
Obviously, since you're quoting how much the interest rate is, what's going to be the bond interest rate that we're selling? What do you think?
So I don't know that I brought
Just a guess. I'm not going to hold you to it, you know.
So it effectively comes out to zero, and this is why. This is qualified school construction bonds that were issued as a part of the ERA project, or the ERA initiative in 2010. So essentially what happens is the federal government subsidizes the interest. And so there's a sequestration right now of 6.8% of the interest they will not pay, which, 6.8% we would pay, and they would pay the remainder of the 100% of interest. All the principal will be on our backs. The feds will pay 93% of all of the interest due.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Is that it?
Ms. Dueñas, you had a question?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Anna showed up first in the thing. Anna, you want to go
Okay.
ahead?
Will this be in the contract? So in case, I'm still trying to understand about the schools, all this list of schools we have on the first. So it would be between 1 year?
In 1 year, the improvements in Phase 1 will be completed on these 20 schools.
Okay. And then all this on, I believe it's from 2017 to 2031?
So this energy savings and the debt service for the entire
Oh,
project
okay.
would last through 2031.
Okay, now I understand. And would that be in the contract, or will we, once we get this contract going, will it be, if it's not working or anything, we see that it's not moving or anything like that, can we change to or stop the contract?
So once the improvements are installed, then the only thing that would be monitored and continued would be the energy savings. And as long as they're under contract with us, as it's written right now, they are responsible to meet the energy savings guarantee. If they don't, they have to write us a check. I can tell you that they've only written 2 checks in their history, according to my information.
And as far as I understand, didn't we spend tens of thousands of dollars on a third party to go in and review and say, yes, you will be seeing this amount of savings
So
from
the
this?
third-party reviewer spent about 60 days reviewing the energy savings calculations. Their comment back to us was, ensure that you agree upon the operational savings. Make sure that you're comfortable with those. And that's what we've been spending time over the last week negotiating.
Thank you. Mrs. McLean?
So I understand, it's their best guess, right? Everybody's best guess as to what the savings are going to be, and, you know, if that's going to pay the.
So the energy savings, they will guarantee contractually we will get them. So
Right,
yes, it is.
But, okay, so go back to the 60%. So they're only guaranteeing 60%, right? And what about the 40%?
So the 40% represents the operational savings, and we are still negotiating that. It is our intent to arrive at a guarantee that protects the district and covers it all. Now, whether we can get there or not, I'm not sure. And if we can't, that would be one of the reasons I would come back to you and say, we cannot get the guarantee that we need to ensure the district remains safe for 15 years out.
So this is a question for Mr. Safi. Mr. Safi, you've been reviewing this contract, I presume. So is there any, no?
Mr. Pine has.
Actually, Ms. McLean, my partner Clyde Pine has been working with Susan Austin on it, and I've been just really on the periphery.
Mr. Pine,
And
a
so if there's
question?
any detailed questions, I would refer them to them.
President Haggerty, Dr. De La Torre, members of the board.
Wait, let me ask the
Okay,
question.
yes, that's why I want to get your question.
So ultimately, my biggest concern at this point is that the taxpayer is not on the hook, right? So regardless of, if we're paying any of this part out of operations, out of operational money that does not come from savings, right? Because this is all predicated on potential savings.
Correct.
So if those savings were not to come to fruition, and they're guaranteeing 60%, would the taxpayer in that case be on the hook for the 40%?
Well, in your scenario, if there really wasn't, the 40% wasn't guaranteed, there could be a deficit that the district would have to pay. But the point that was brought up is we're still negotiating to try to get the guarantee in some of the figures, because it involves both math figures, operational issues, and some legal ones as well. From the legal point of view, we're still working on some of the language to make sure we get as much guarantee as possible.
But you're not answering my question. Is there potentially a time where the taxpayer would be on the hook if these savings do not come to fruition, given that they are guaranteeing, at this point, from what you've explained to us, 60%?
So the district's O&M tax rate is already capped. We cannot raise it. So if something happened and we could not make it up in operational or energy savings, we would not be able to raise the tax rate to cover it. We would have to find other efficiencies within the district operations to do so.
But it would still be coming from the taxpayer money, right?
Certainly, all of it. I mean, we're completely funded by taxpayer money.
Right, but it's not coming from those projected savings, so therefore we would have to dip into the budget, monies that would go otherwise to programs or salaries or health benefits, whatever
Yes,
the
ma'am.
issue may be. Okay. So
If the savings don't materialize, that's correct.
that is a big concern.
Your time is up?
My time is up?
Yes, ma'am. But then you also said that if, for some reason, that it came to that point, then you would come back and say, we don't approve moving forward.
So if we can't reach an agreement that external counsel, internal counsel, the ABM, Mr. O'Neill, Dr. De La Torre agree on, then I want to preface this whole thing by saying, I'm going to come back to you, don't throw things at me, and tell you, I don't recommend you do this.
And out of all those people you just mentioned, are there any that see a reason to not move forward on this?
To not move forward with this evening with allowing us to go forward with the negotiations and pursuing contract, no, I don't think we would say pull out now. We want to continue pursuing it.
Mr. Pearson, you had a question?
Yeah, you had mentioned earlier about the discounts they're able to get. If we're spending, you may not even know the answer, and they probably won't want to tell us, of $11.3 million. If we went out and bought it on market, actually, what would it cost us? So what's the operating, in other words, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. And
Okay.
so we have not finished that. I'll let him come up, but I will tell you that we're taking that 252 units and comparing 1 ton, 3 ton, 5 ton. We're just not done because it's so much
Yeah.
to go through, but we are checking that. I will tell you that today I went to the SEC filings for ABM and pulled down their 2015 filings, and on their energy efficiency segment of their business, their gross profit margin is 4.7, just on this segment. So it's not, if it had been 10 or 15, I'd have said, you're going to give me numbers. But at 4.7%, to me, that's not unreasonable.
Not unless we'll vote to, we can take a vote to see if anyone wants to, third round of questions. We can call the question, or we can vote to have a third round of questions, whichever board prefers.
I think if we're going to be voting, I think we should be able to ask all the questions that we need instead of being denied to speak in situations like this.
Right, but according to our procedure, it would be, we can vote to have a third round, or we can vote to call a question. I'll entertain a motion either way. So Mr. Rosales calls the question. We have a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? We're calling the question.
Yes. Opposed.
Guess what?
I want to talk.
4-3. Right. Sorry, Mr. Safi, do you remember if it's the 3/5 to call the question, or if it's A majority vote?
Offhand, I don't know what Robert's Rules of Order provides on that, Mr. Haggerty, and I don't believe that the board operating procedures address what the necessary vote is. And I don't have a copy of Robert's Rules of Order with me. If anyone has a copy, I could certainly look it up.
One that's written here is 2/3. I think we're doing a third round of questioning. Certainly, anyone who would like to speak?
Yes. Just one question.
You got to push your
And that-
button. And Mrs. McLean beat you.
It is, it's on. Oh,
Ms. McLean, go ahead.
well, go ahead.
There you go.
So now start my time. I would like to say that at this point, considering there is so much confusion and lack of information, I personally feel that I would be doing a disservice to my constituents to vote to approve this at this time. I am not comfortable with this knowledge, and I understand Mr. Haggerty brought up that we have other contracts, but those are contracts that we've seen in the past. This is a very new, very different contract, very complicated contract, and I, as of yet, do not feel comfortable, not that I'm opposed to it, I just don't feel comfortable with, one, the lack of information that we've received, just because we've received it so late. Not that we didn't receive it, but we received it so late. I've not had time to review it. It is in the millions of dollars, and there could potentially be a impact on the taxpayer, which at this point I am not I don't feel comfortable taking on that responsibility at this time.
Thank you. I'm on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We've given this has been in the works for I don't know how long now. We've even paid for a third party to look at this, a third party that's full of engineers and people that know what they're looking for, and they've signed off. The CFO has said it's good. The superintendent has said it's good. There's nobody left that hasn't said it's good except for to wait when they've already told us it's going to cost us $100,000 plus at the end of the time because we've waited. To me, I'm not comfortable. It was $80,000, and that's so it's going to move on. Okay, whatever. Okay, it wasn't 8. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. Fact of the matter is, it's 6 figures. By the end of the 15 years, it will be 6 figures a month that we will be saving, and I'm not comfortable saying back to my voters, I went ahead and wasted $100,000 because I didn't feel. I'm happy for you. I'm stumped. I'm trying to figure out what it is that you don't see, how this could be something positive, but I'll go ahead and go on to Ms. Duenas.
Go ahead. Okay. Just my question to the attorney.
Okay.
Just a simple question. You have read most of the paperwork. We get every time, every meeting, we've had different paperwork. But just since you've read it pretty much, what do you think? What do you recommend?
Don't want me to make a business decision if you ask my wife. So from a legal point of view, there's still work needs to be done. The primary work, most of the contract is already finalized, appears to be agreed upon. There's still needs to be some detail on some of the schedules in terms of getting specifics like you mentioned earlier. Which units, which light fixtures, or which schools are going to be done.
Right.
The big thing from a legal point of view is probably going to be the cost savings guarantees. The guarantees both in terms of making sure it protects as much as possible and guarantees as much as possible, has as few exclusions or exceptions as possible, and also is appropriately measured so we can measure later. One thing about the guarantee is just to make clear too is that we've provided for a surety bond to back up the guarantee. So you'll have an insurance company to back up the cost savings guarantees. So you just don't have to rely on ABM. You'd also have an insurance company who would pay if they did not. Kind of like you do a payment or performance bond, something similar to that.
Okay.
And actually, to address something too about the phases, because I think it goes into one of your questions, the way the contract is designed now is there would be an agreement now to start the Phase 1 items. There would be hopefully some of the Phase 2 stuff in there, but there's a big contingency saying the district will come back later and tell you which Phase 2 or Phase 3 projects we want to do. And you don't start until we come back. It's our decision on which ones we want to do. So there would be a later decision by the district, and whether it's the board administration, it's up to you all, to make that decision as to which the Phase 2 and Phase 3 projects would be done. That would come later, so we at least have the Phase 1 projects, because the bond work, those are the bond projects. There's some timing issues from what my understanding is to try to coordinate the the things, so the bond projects aren't delayed while we're waiting on the HVAC systems.
Okay, so this, yes, because I know that was part of bond money and then from other funds. Am I correct?
None of Phase 1 is coming from the 2015 bond monies. There's a completely separate bond issuance that would address Phase 1. Okay, nothing to do with the 2015 bond program other than the coordination of the projects, because there are schools under construction, and those 20 schools are in the Phase 1, and we need to coordinate. And if we wait too late, then we can't make those improvements because they've gone past us in the bond program.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes, okay. Ms. Leeper, I trust you implicitly on the negotiations of this. The problem is it's just on my part of why I'm having a difficult time of, I know everybody go ahead and okay it, of okaying it without knowing all those numbers, because this isn't like another contract that's negotiated. This has very specific amounts of money, a lot of money, and the fact is when you look out, you know, I hate to say it, but almost everybody in this room won't be here when it comes near the end. So I want to see more than just maybe this, or we're negotiating before I make a decision that possibly one could affect our taxpayers and take money out of the fund balance or cut whatever, and will have a long-term effect on this district.
I have one more question. You keep bringing up money that we'll be paying, that we'll be taking out of other programs and stuff. You stated that there's savings that's coming from the company. From what I understand, the state says you have to pay, if we don't reach a certain amount in savings, the company has to make up that amount. Then you said that we're insured. So when are we at risk ever to be losing money if?
So the guarantee covers the energy savings, which have been verified and which we have agreed to. There's no uncertainty anymore about the energy savings.
And that amount was 14 million?
No. Energy savings represent about 60% of the 14 million. It is the operational savings that we are still negotiating and attempting to finalize. But they are obligated by law to guarantee the energy savings, which represents about $500,000 of every year's $800,000 in principal and interest and measurement and verification services.
And then the insurance would cover if we had to?
No.
Yeah,
you just said there was insurance. They just said there was
No,
insurance.
the guarantee. If the guarantee was not paid, if ABM went bankrupt, we would
Yes.
have the guarantee to go against.
Mr. Rosales?
For the energy.
Well,
The savings are at 14 million. They will guarantee 60%, which equates to about 8.4 million.
Currently, yes, sir.
And then that's where the bond comes in and said we're insured that 60%,
Yeah.
which is 8.4.
I think so it's clear, in theory, you could spend more money than the estimated savings. By law, you could spend more. I don't think the district wants to do that. I don't think most districts or other governments who do these want to do that. We really don't want to spend more money than we're going to have in savings. The vendor needs to guarantee a certain level of savings. And it can be whatever level that's negotiated out. We had a third-party reviewer look at what ABM had proposed as its guaranteed figures. The third-party reviewer said, well, they look reasonable, that looks achievable. And I guess they did a certification to that effect. So it's that guaranteed figure. Is that what?
Right.
The certain savings they are guaranteeing, we're still negotiating. Right now, we're talking about the 60%. I think what Ms. Levy is saying is we need to get up higher than that and try to get to 100% if we can. And if not, maybe coming back here to say, look, we couldn't get as much as we want on the guarantees. But if we can get whatever we ultimately guarantee, then we compare our actual costs, and there's different components, and it's real complicated because there's different components of costs. But if our savings, our actual savings are less than what they had guaranteed to us, that difference, ABMOs needs to write us a check. And if they can't write us a check, then we have the surety bond to come in at that point. So the guarantee is not to the 40%, it's as to the difference between your actual savings and what they had guaranteed as savings.
But again, we're at 60%. If it stays at 60%, you're going to come back and say we're not doing this?
It won't stay at 60. We're already in discussions for more than that, but I want 90%, and whether I can get to 90% so that in 15 years when I see it in the paper, I don't go, oh my gosh, I helped make that deal. I can say, you know what, that was a fantastic deal, and the district was protected for the entire 15 years.
Just to follow up on it, and I hate to take so much time, but the fact and the reality of this thing is the tie-in of money, and I agree with you, Mr. Pearson, wholeheartedly. On the other hand, just by our friends at El Paso Electric, we are now going through the 14% increase. And lo and behold, more than likely in January, we're going to look at another 10%. And then thereafter, you know, whatever the song that they present, we dance to. Any form of delay would mean delaying the savings by that much more.
Yes.
Now, I think if I have a question is the phase 2 and 3, could we walk away from that if things do not work out?
That's actually correct. The way it's written right now, you do not have to proceed with
We're not
phase
going to be
2.
obligated to $30 million if it didn't work out.
Well, it's
Or
when
20.
you decide to go forward with phase 2 and 3. You're not obligated to go forward with phase 2 and 3 if you don't wish to.
So when we get to phase 1, we need to make it, or I mean phase 2 and phase 3, we would then be allowed the opportunity to engage into phase 2 and phase 3. Is that correct?
Yes, you would, the way it's written right now, the district would make a decision, because ABM has not yet provided all the information of their proposed energy savings measures for phases 2 and 3. The district will look through it, the third-party reviewer will look through it. The board or administration at some point will go through and say, you know, we don't want to do these things, we want to do these things over here. You'll make the decision, but there is a timing issue. I'm not sure when that phase 2 and 3 decision is going to be coming to you.
But we can make that decision when we get to it.
Correct.
Currently, the 20 sites, am I over? He was talking most of the time.
That's a lawyer.
On your
Been into
time.
my time. My question is, God, at my age, you can't talk. I
Phase
forget
2,
my.
you were talking about phase 2 decision.
Yeah, now, phase 1 includes part of those projects are part of the bond. So by delaying that, we're going to implicate so much impact on those, on the timing of the items that we're going to undertake under the bond. So we're actually caught between a hard nut and a rock, so to speak. However, we could not, if we elected not to go into phase 2 or 3, we would then make that determination.
That is correct.
What I think most of us are afraid of is agreeing to $50 million before we get there, not knowing all the ramifications. I trust Ms. Leeper wholeheartedly, and you, of course, with your expertise. But what I don't want to do is also put the taxpayer on the hook for another $50 million. I see it every day. There's a lot of people out in this district living on pure Social Security. And I understand some of them are not, well, most of those people are exempt because of their age, but we're not in the most rich area in America, unfortunately. So we have to be very prudent of how we spend our money. I finished.
Thank you.
I'd just like to offer just one thing, and that is that if in fact we see these rate increases, these utility increases, and we don't attempt to mitigate them using some of these strategies, then what will really impact programs are those increases, because those increases in the operational budget are going to require a bigger piece of the pie, and they're going to start to affect student programs and experiences more likely than if we take aggressive action and try to get ahead of it. I think I feel the same way that some of you do, and that is that, and I like to say, I've assembled great people. Lindley Leeper is both very competent and conservative. Susan Austin has been a great set of eyes and has been meticulous. Mr. Pyle is obviously an expert in his particular area of practice. So I don't know how we assemble a stronger group of people to make sure that what we introduce to the district yields the results that we need and we expect.
Mr. Ramirez, you had a question?
The question for Ms. Leeper. If we were to change the motion that we approve phase one, but the district has to come back to the board for phase two and phase three for evaluation and ultimately final approval, will that have any impact on your negotiations?
From my perspective, no. No. ABM agrees, no impact on our future negotiations or to finalize this one.
Thank you.
And actually, I may just add something too, just for a clarification. If that was done, perhaps with some guidance as to whether you mean just do a contract that only addresses phase one, or the current format where you have phase one with an essentially optional phase two and three. Because if you are talking the first thing, there will need to be renegotiation because we've got to change a lot of the language in the current language in the contract. Okay.
Which do you recommend?
Serve at the pleasure of the board. I will work it out whichever way you want us to.
We would have to vote on another round of questions if Ms. McLean, if you wanted to speak. Okay, and then I'm calling the question. But you spoke too, didn't you? Yeah, you spoke first. Yeah, I'm the one who's running the meeting. I'm calling the question. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes that time. Right. I move to approve YISD contract 2017-0175 with ABM Services LLC for turnkey energy efficiency improvements in phase one sites for $11,396,500 and at district's option at phase two and phase three sites for up to $50 million contingent upon receipt of independent verification of cost savings for all phases and legal counsel approval of final contract. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, do you have a recommendation?
Sorry, I shouldn't have put my President Haggerty, members of the board, the administration supports the recommendation as presented.
The motion passed without Ms. Dueñas's vote. We can, were you yes or no?
And this is for the 11,
No, it's for all of it?
for all of it?
Yes,
I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, it was already. Aye. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-2. Consider and take possible action to approve a reimbursement resolution to reimburse the general fund for projects identified in phase one of the energy audit and utility assessments report. Is there discussion? If there is no discussion, using electronic hand for discussion, using electronic vote, may I please have a motion on action item number 3?
Mr. President, I move to approve the reimbursement resolution to reimburse the general fund for projects identified in Phase 1 of the Energy Audit and Utility Assessment Report.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on action item number 3?
Wait a minute, I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On this question on, Ms. Lieber, this is a reimbursement from the general funds projects?
Yes, ma'am. So in light of what we just approved for the ABM projects, as I mentioned before, I will immediately, upon approval of the contract and the finalization of negotiations, issue a purchase order. We will commence these projects. Then we'll sell debt in the next 60, 90 days to cover that, and we'll need to reimburse ourselves.
Where is this general fund coming from?
The general operating funds, cash that we have on hand.
The fund balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We already have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, do you have a recommendation?
The administration would ask the board to approve a reimbursement resolution to reimburse the general fund for projects identified in Phase 1 of the Energy Audit and Utility Assessment Report.
Thank you. Do you have a?
Well, since I didn't vote, my vote didn't count. I'll
Just push yes or no. Motion is approved, 4-2. Number 4, consider and take possible action to ratify change order number 1 to YISD contract 2016-0457 with Parakin Enterprises LLC to increase the fee by an amount of $4,258 and changing the substantial completion date from July 20th, 2016 to August 8th, 2016 for the Riverside High School ceiling tile replacement in additional rooms from various district funds and contingent upon legal review council and approval of contract change order. Using your electronic hand for discussion, is there any? Tony, did you have a question, or is that from?
No, I don't.
Not using electronic vote, may I please have a motion on action item number 4?
Mr. President, I move to ratify change order number 1 to YISD contract number 201-60457 with Parakin Enterprises LLC to increase the fee by an amount of $4,258 and changing the substantial completion date from July 20th, 2016 to August 8, 2016 for the Riverside High School ceiling tile replacement in additional rooms from various district funds and contingent upon legal counsel review and approval of contract change order.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation?
The administration would ask that the board ratify change order number 1 to YISD contract 201-60457 with Parakin Enterprises LLC to increase the fee by an amount of $4,258 and changing the substantial completion date from July 20, 2016 to August 8, 2016.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. And item number 5, consider and take possible action to approve award of YSD solicitation Bond 07 CSP to Dantex Construction Company, Bond 07 CSP, Bond BP 06, Eastwood Knolls additions and renovations, $6,569,275 from bond funds. Is there discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question with regard to the bid, that alternate bids, and then it says additive bid, alternate number 1, parking lot, and alternate number 2, wrought iron fences. What, are those part of the original items that were approved by the bond, by the voters for the bond?
It was the total package, and when we went ahead and put it in, just if it was possible, we wanted to add additional parking to that campus because it is landlocked, it's a very small campus, and this gave us an opportunity to add the parking. But to answer your question.
Yes, my question.
Okay, to answer your question, the bond did not specifically say add additional parking to Eastwood Knolls.
Or wrought iron fence, or wrought iron fence.
No, ma'am, but that's just part of the project. But we put it as an alternate to make sure that we had enough money to do the whole package.
When
So
would-
that's the reason we listed as an alternate.
When would the board know that these items are going to be done and these monies are going to be expended?
The alternates, with your approval.
Any further discussion? Not using an electronic vote, may I please have a motion on action item number 5? A motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on item number 5?
President Haggerty, the administration would ask approval of award YISD solicitation bond 07 CSP BPO6 Eastwood Knolls additions and renovations for $6,569,275 from bond funds, the work to be performed by Dantex.
Been cast. Motion passes 7-0. Number 6, consider and take possible action to name the official 2016-17 TASB delegate and name the TASB alternative for YISD. Although my name is on there, I've done it, and I enjoyed my time doing it, but I would also like to certainly extend that opportunity to someone who hasn't had a chance to do it yet, because it's very worthwhile. You get to experience a lot of the legislative side of being a school board member, as well as being able to interact with so many different members from across the state that wouldn't mind seeing someone else take that opportunity if they were so willing and so desired.
Mr. President, I would like to try it. Be okay with everyone?
Anyone else? Not? I move to name Mrs. Woodruff as the official 2016-17 TASB delegate and Trustee Rosales as the TASB alternative for YISD. May I have a second? Dr. De La Torre, does administration have a recommendation on who we send to?
The administration fully supports naming Ms. Connie Woodruff the official 2016-17 TASB delegate and naming Mr. Mike Rosales the TASB alternate for the Ysleta Independent School District.
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Local policy item number 1 is from the TASB update number 106. Staff has reviewed the TASB recommendations and added Ysleta-specific language in some cases and recommends adoption of item number 1 at this time. Local policy item number 2 is being proposed by YISD staff. Using your electronic hand for discussion, is there any discussion? There is none. May I please have a motion on policy action items numbers 1 and 2? I have a motion and a second. Dr. De La Torre, you guys already approved it? It already says that you approved it.
Yes, sir.
Motion passes 6-1. Board of Trustees has determined that a closed meeting of the Board of Trustees is required to discuss the items set forth in the posted agenda for this date. Such closed meeting is authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.001, including but not limited to the sections and purposes covered by the following section of the Texas Government Code, 551.071, 72, 73, 74, 76, 82, 821, 83, and 84. Any final action, decision, or vote be required with regard to any matter considered in closed session, the final action, decision, or vote shall be in the open meeting or at a subsequent public meeting with notice. The board will now move to the Rio Grande Room for closed session at 7:20 p.m. I reconvene this meeting at 8:35 PM with the following present: Mr. Rosales, Mr. Ramirez, Mrs. Woodruff, Mr. Pearson, Mrs. McLean, Ms. Duenas, and myself, Shane Haggerty. Motion to adjourn? Board meeting ends at 8:36 PM. Thank you.
Be running over here knocking people down.